Hello, welcome. It's very good to see friends in the audience. So welcome to the MLK Convergence interview series, Pathways to Peace in Ukraine. I am Tezakaya Gabriel. I'm the Executive Director of Pathways to Peace. And Pathways to Peace has been conducting these interviews for a total of 7 days, beginning last Friday, February 17th, and ending tomorrow, February 23rd, in this Zoom room and at this time. We're interviewing incredible peace leaders as a lead up to the Compassion Games Beloved Community Convergence, which is February 24th and 25th. And then beyond that, the Summit on the Ukraine, which will take place on February 27th through March 3rd and is hosted by Humanity Rising. So I have put that information in the chat. It is just absolutely my honor and my pleasure to be with David Wick today. And David Wick, I believe some of our audience members know David quite well. David has held the vision and values of personal and societal evolution to our highest and best. David is my peace brother, my colleague, and my friend. And so we're going to have a little bit different format for our time together today. In that David has put together a presentation for us, as well as I may be asking some questions or prompting him in some other ways. David's talk today is titled Perspectives on Peace in Times of War, and Wisdom from Avon Madison as one who knew her well. And I think that you know that the Pathways to Peace in Ukraine series is also dedicated to our beloved founder, Avon Madison. And so I'm just so honored and delighted that David is willing to bring in that wisdom of Avon as she ascended over a year ago. And yet her legacy, we continue to build on her legacy. And she guides us and directs our work from the other side. So I feel particularly grateful for the fact that David's going to be bringing in some of Avon's wisdom for us as we really look at how we respond to the war in Ukraine, but even beyond that, war and the conflicts that are occurring around the globe. So let me talk a little bit more about David. And so David currently serves as the Pathways to Peace president. So David and I get to work together side by side daily. David is the Rotary E-Club of World Peace immediate past president, and he is the Ashland Culture of Peace Commission executive director. Beginning in 1980, David helped launch the United Nations NGO Pathways to Peace, which had assisted the adoption of the UN's International Day of Peace in 1981. While working at Stanford University in 1985, David founded the 10-year-long Pathways to Peace, Peace Within Organizations program. Building upon his knowledge and experience, David co-founded the Ashland Culture of Peace Commission with Irene Kai and currently serves as its executive director. David's previous experiences culminated in his leadership as president of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. David also has 30 years of corporate executive and management training and organizational development consulting experience that he brings to the field of peace building. So David, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and this is a very special time to be with you, my colleagues, and Hezekiah, dear colleague in all ways, and see Tammy here, and Marilyn, and also Robert, and also dear peace builders, and who know of the work of Pathways. And so this is really a delight to be able to focus in on the work of Avon, to begin with, the work of Avon Madison. And so often, what are we doing? We're asking each other in many different ways, well, what can I do? What can we do? Oh my gosh, look at the war. What can I do about that? Or what can I do to help greater peace in the world? Well, this is an example of a person who's done that, who has taken the step forward and had a major influence on the globe. I mean, this is something that has grown and evolved, but from a steadfast focus on peace, knowing that it is something that it must be done, and finding the pathways to do it. So I'm going to show a PowerPoint here, and let's just get going. Here we are. Optimize. Ready to go. Get this fired up. Well, that's the end. So, all right. So we're gonna go back. You'll see it quickly in reverse here. So again, the perspectives on peace in times of war, wisdom from David Madison. And the focus here is the creation of Pathways to Peace. And so many of you know that Pathways to Peace was founded, well, actually, it was the image of it, the inspiration of it was far before it was actually an NGO, which was in 1983. I worked with Avon, as mentioned, in 1980 and on. And we met at an event. And but the evolution of Pathways has been based on deep inspiration. Avon has always been focused on what's behind the words, what's behind the symbols, is the spirituality, is the spiritual awareness, the consciousness. And the symbol of Pathways to Peace is very significant. We don't have time to go into the detail of that, but it is the double infinitive, infinity lines, and so on. But you'll learn more as we proceed here. Let me get this here. So this is Avon, and this is Avon at the UN with Ban Ki-moon. Avon was in the diplomatic corps, and you'll find out when she first learned of her inspiration about creating peace building. But the prime focus for her was with the United Nations. That was the vehicle that she saw that could really make a difference. And this is where she worked tirelessly to engage at the UN. So this is with Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General at the time. And she was quite a presence there at different times. I'm going to show you her inspirational beginnings.
I was about 3.5, going toward 4. There was an experience that I had in answer to my question that basically showed the planet as in its entirety, and showed that all life on Earth was interconnected and living as one interconnected life, and how this Earth was part of this entire solar system, and this solar system was part of other solar systems, and this galaxy was part of a galaxy, and how this galaxy was part of other galaxies, and in these beautiful sort of septonies. There were 7 of each. I don't know why that didn't at that time. And then brought back to Earth and the was shown the evolution of life from single cell organisms all the way to what humanity would be like in the 21st century and beyond. And at that time, I made a commitment to dedicating my life to peace.
Dedicating her life to peace.
I was about 3.5, going toward 4. I was about.
So her life was focused on peace and peace building. And she did have the image when she was very young about an organization. And actually her inspiration at 4 years old was before the UN was founded, but she had that deep knowledge and inspiration at that time of the organization and working with the organization. And here she is, and influencing so many different things. The beginnings of Pathways started around the creation of the Peace Wheel. And this is part of the brilliance that Avon brought, was around that everyone, each person, is a pathway to peace. Every organization, every field of endeavor, every sector in our society is a pathway to peace. And that has been the core of the message. And the different sectors that are identified here, and there are many others. But suffice it to say that we are all a pathways to peace. And our journey is to become conscious of that and then do something about it. You take some action, whatever that may be. But this has been the core image. Another big part of the Pathways to Peace effort, and also the internet, Avon's work, was she worked very early on at the United Nations, helping to co-create and encourage the foundation of the International Day of Peace. I'm going to read a couple things about that because this is so significant. This is the beginnings of it. So I would say the International Day of Peace was established in 1981 by Resolution 3667 of the United Nations General Assembly, a unanimous vote. The first International Day of Peace was observed at the United Nations headquarters on September 21, 1982, after the proclamation in 1981, and the opening session of the 37th session of the General Assembly. At the time of the start of the sessions, delegates stood the traditional minute of silence in observance of the day. That was how the first one was observed. Pathways to Peace saw that nothing was being done by member states involving civil society, and therefore took action. In 1983, with the minute of silence of the UN, the idea of the Peace Day was adopted so civil society can get involved and humanity has something to do engaging in activity that benefits the larger community. And this is intergenerational and intercultural. In 1984, the September 18th International Day of Peace, people were involved in 70 countries, and Pathways to Peace engaged this is the first major event in San Francisco, when department stores stopped their cash registers at noon. A major television network stopped its programming at noon and scrolled a message of silence for a minute of peace. The minute of peace, minute of silence, moment of peace, and the global peace wave were used. This movement and activity outside of the headquarters of the United Nations for the first International Day of Peace in this way. So this is the beginnings of the International Day of Peace. There's more behind this, but this is, again, the inspiration. And she says it takes more than one person to get the idea, the inspiration to create something like this, that she was the key in doing this. Let me get my bearings again. So this is a flyer that we had, and I was very involved with this. It was a year into the development of creating this event. It was in the downtown Civic Center, right in front of the city hall. It was a very big deal. And so this is what we created for that day. And this is the flyer for the 1984 event. Proclamation from Dianne Feinstein. She was the mayor of San Francisco at the time, had the support of all the city officials. Again, a major event. And the person who is right here with us, Marilyn King, was one of our keynote speakers who was really launching the idea of we are a team, a peace team. And this has grown today. This is, again, part of the impact of one person, Ava Madison. This is now hundreds of millions of people around the world engaged in the International Day of Peace. So to say, does something count? Well, it evolved. It took a lot of work. We worked our bunnies off creating the 1984 event, but it grew. And because of the importance of it to civil society, it has grown. Another area that of the inspiration of Avon is having young people involved with Pathways to Peace from the very beginning. From the very beginning of our the board of directors, we have always had a young person as a member of the board of directors. And also creating very early, having representatives to the United Nations, youth representatives. This is Mr. George Anthony on the far left side, and youth representatives among his students who come to the UN, learn about the UN, but also represent Pathways to Peace. That's been a very important part in talking about creating a legacy with young people that live on and become part of their life. This is it. Another area that Avon has really been a leader in was with the Commission on the Status of Women. She was part of the original event that took place in Beijing, China, and a very strong focus on the care and the evolution and support of the development of women and girls. And Pathways to Peace is has been involved for years with the Commission on the Status of Women, and we've got programs that are coming up in March with the Commission on the Status of Women. But again, this is something that Avon had the vision of, and it has infused in many of us and is continuing on. Another part of her deep involvement with the UN has been the culture of peace. But it's very interesting that Pathways to Peace used the language of culture of peace in the 1980s. Pathways to Peace, excuse me, also was one of the first to use the language of peace building. Before that, it was not used. It was peacekeeping, peacemaking from the UN. But the culture of peace then evolved with many people involved with this to being a resolution at the UN in 1999. And the whole focus of the culture of peace was a very big area to get into another time. But the culture of peace has been a core part of Pathways from the very inception of the culture of peace. So again, the influence of one person that can really make a difference globally. From the focus on the culture of peace, the Pathways, we initiated the Culture of Peace Initiative, which is bringing the understanding of the culture of peace to various parts, different cities, different communities, individuals. And one of the areas, and it has gone to, it is in part of the International Cities of Peace out of Dayton, Ohio, and also Chicago with Jennifer Kim, many different areas. And this is one of the things that I brought from, again, all this time I've been working with Avon and others and Pathways to Peace and these initiatives. And bringing, when I moved to Ashland, we brought the whole concept of the culture of peace and created the National Culture of Peace Commission, and with Irene Kai, and she then brought in the World Peace Flame from Wales. Key was the creation and inspiration of we call it the Peace Card, but the Imagine a World was a beautiful litany of different things, such as imagine a world where the governments respect the human rights of all citizens and settle disputes by the rule of law for the common good. I'll move down to where the benefits of science and technology enhance all circles of life, etc. This can be a whole focus of one's existence, and also organizations. It helps to guide organizations in how they function. It's part of the early thinking that went into corporate social responsibility. It had an influence in that arena also. So again, this one person, but bringing all of us together, then it was shared, then we all co-created. It was, this is not all Avon's ideas, but all the co-creation, but creating the consistent focus. So you never missed a beat in terms of the focus moving forward and being a pathway to peace. So again, we're looking at the perspectives on peace and war and wisdom of Avon Madison. So perspectives on peace in times of war, this is what this is about. It is how we not get into war, and the ways that we are keeping ourselves on the pathway to peace is very much inspiration that has gone globally. So I'm going to leave it at that point, Hezekiah. And so go ahead and any questions that you have, or shall I do the stop share?
Sure, let's stop share. Sure, because we are going to soon pause for our Peace Wave. And for those of you who looked at that program for the first gathering of the International Day of Peace, you saw that the minute of silence, moment of peace, what we now call the Peace Wave, was a part of that program. And so, David, I love everything that you said. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for bringing it back to Pathways to Peace. You would not have had to do that. And of course, I know it's in your DNA, it's in your bones, Pathways to Peace. So thank you. I wonder if you would spend just a moment before we move into our Peace Way, just spend a moment talking about, because you've seen Pathways to Peace through its entire evolution, what most excites you about where we're at today?
Well, I think what most excites me is the example of the International Day of Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because here is a concept, and it came from the UN, and I mean, a lot went behind getting a unanimous support, unanimous, vote for, like that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
But to move it forward. So this is, back in the, 1984 and the early days. And we say, we'd like to talk to you about the International Day of Peace. People go, what's that? I've never heard of that. I mean, it was not known. It was not known. But to see the evolution to now, literally, you check out any, Google it and check it out. It just is literally around the world, in every country, in one form or another. And so that is something that is just, do we have an influence in the world? Yeah, and we certainly can. And there are elements that come together to make it happen. But I would say that, and then the other is that each of us has a responsibility. Each of us has the ability and responsibility of creating the world that we want, of creating the world of peace. So that's how, coming around to the Ukraine, it's like, okay, and everything in life is agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Everything, the stop sign on my corner outside was created by someone's idea and then agreement to say, okay, let's do that. Well, the dollar bills that we have, how was that created? It was created with an idea and agreement. So it's really our thinking that
Yes.
drives what we have and do, period. That's it. That's it. So it's really the evolution is about what we think, and then what we believe, and then what actions we take, and we get tied up in the knot because we're so wedded to what we think, what we believe.
Yes.
And we say, well, you're wrong because yours thinking is not the same as mine. So I'm going to take out my gun, etc. So that's the core, is the pathway to peace, is that we all have a responsibility and we are all pathways to peace, and every organization is. Every, where does, the whole focus of corporate social responsibility is the beginning point. But as I'm going to talk shortly about Willis Harman, is like the, business has the greatest responsibility for the world. Business is, at general, but it hasn't stepped up into that. So that's part of it.
Yes. And I know you're going to be talking more about that after our Peace Wave. So this is real life, in that as we go about our daily work, that the Peace Wave is a pause, just a 1-minute pause at 12 noon in every time zone. And David, you talked a little bit about how it was used to open the General Assembly way back that year after the resolution to adopt the International Day of Peace. And the reason it's 12 noon is because the United Nations was birthed in San Francisco. And so it was 12 noon in San Francisco, but 3 o'clock in the General Assembly, which is when the General Assembly opens. And so the Peace Wave, as it stands today and is practiced around the world, is really that pause for peace. And it is at 12 noon in every time zone. And it gives us an opportunity to watch that wave just washes around the world with peace. And so I'm going to take just a minute or two to set up the Peace Wave. By the way, you don't have to do that. You can just pause for a moment and hold a vision of peace or embrace the energy of peace. But just because I can, I'll take a couple of moments to set up the Peace Wave and get us into a position of relaxation, peace, calm, and then we'll move into that 1 minute of silence. So I'd like you to just get really comfortable. Just kind of allow your body to settle into your chairs. We're going to slow our breath. We're going to breathe a little bit more slowly, a little more deeply. And maybe you wish to put your hand on your heart. And if it helps you to count for your breath, you can count 5 counts on the inhale and 5 counts on the exhale. And we're just going to breathe together for a little while, that one sacred breath. We all breathe. Our breath is the connection between us and the connection to all that is. So we're just going to take a moment to breathe together. If your mind wanders, that's not a problem. Just bring it back to your breath. And when you establish a comfortable pace with your breath, I'd like you to focus on the center of your chest, the seat of the heart. And imagine your breath coming in and out through that sacred heart space. You can't do it wrong, so just relax into it. And with every breath we take, we imagine our hearts expanding. And we see that energy of the heart, that beautiful peace, that love, that compassion, that kindness, that gratitude that really exists within us, right in that heart, that beautiful heart. So see that beautiful, loving energy. Feel it. And allow in that expansion of your heart for that energy to fill every space in your body, nurturing, bringing love and peace into every part of you, every cell. And we are connected heart to heart through that one heartbeat. We feel that love, that peace, that calm, that compassion, and that gratitude filling us and beyond us as we enter into that moment of silence, that moment of peace. And now we can come back into this physical space that we inhabit today, bringing all of that beautiful, peaceful energy with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I find that sometimes when I go into my peace wave, I have a desire to stay a bit longer than a minute. It just feels so good. That's a good thing. Yes, that's a good thing. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for being in this sacred circle with us today. So David, I'm really looking forward to this next part of your presentation and really, again, exploring more about mindset. And so I'll turn the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the guidance on the minute of silence. And I forget to do that, taking the moment. And it is so, it's refreshing, but also it's just shifting my energy.
Yes.
It's shifting my go energy and just like, okay, but it opens up.
Yes.
It's an opening. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, it really was established to make Peace Day every day by embracing our own loving energy to hold us in peace. And I know, David, you speak so beautifully about peace beginning here, peace beginning within, and then having that emanate out. So,
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
so,
and thank you for that.
yeah.
And it's absolutely true. And again, that's been part of the very essence of Pathways,
Mhm.
is that it begins with us individually. And people are not, I would say generally, people don't think about that. I didn't think about that for a long time. But it really is when you wake up in the morning, and Marilyn King does a whole focus on Olympian thinking, and when you wake up in the morning and how you start, and what you're thinking about, and how you begin your day. But it really is how we begin, what are our thoughts, and what are we doing in our immediate relationships? Who are communicating with the next person that we see in our family? And I mean, that's where it really begins, but it is within us. And I just generally say that in my view, living in this earth, the 3D world, it's a schoolhouse. It is constantly learning. It
Yes.
is constantly evolving. That's an inner job. We have outside external influences or impacts or engagements, but ultimately, what we learn and what we embrace is our inner self, and that's part of our
Yes.
evolution. But that
Yes.
is what also drives choice. That's what drives the impact in the world. That's what drives the leaders that we have in the world, for good or ill. That is not someone them telling them what to do. It's their inner voice, their inner guidance, their inner choices. They create the world that we have. Therefore, it goes back to mindset. Again and again. So I'll proceed, and I'm going to show you something in terms of what Avon had to say in terms of the bigger view of the world, of peace building in the world. And it'll take me a moment to catch up with the slides here. So one moment, please. I'll have to restart, I think. And let me get this going. I have to go from the beginning. Okay, good. All right, so let us begin. And this is Avon. Please listen carefully. And the words are not in sync with the image, just how it happened. But listen closely to her words.
Principle and action that we have used for the International Day of Peace is acting in concert. We do make a difference in the quality of our lives, our institutions, our environment, and our planetary future. Through cooperation, we manifest the essential spirit that unites us amidst our diverse ways. That the establishment of a lasting peace on earth represents the primary condition for the preservation of human civilization and the survival of humankind. And the recognizing that the maintenance of a peaceful life for peoples is a sacred duty of each state. This is pretty bold back in the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
And solemnly proclaims that the peoples of the planet have a sacred right to peace, and solemnly declares that the preservation of the right of peoples to peace and the promotion and implementation constitute a fundamental obligation of each state and each person. Now that is revolutionary at that time. So that followed on from that was inspired by the resolution establishing the International Day of Peace. So this adds also a right to peoples to live in peace to what was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Mm-hmm.
So we're beginning to see peace being understood not as something that happens because of war, but as something so much more profound, actually as a right of humanity and of this planet, and to be held as a sacred obligation.
Give peace a voice.
Peace is a human right, not as a result of war. That's key. That's a major understanding. Dr. Willis Harman was a very close colleague of Avon's, and I worked with Avon and Willis in various ways. But Willis was he was a professor at Stanford University, an engineering professor, and he started seeing that and he was a very conscious person, very smart. And also started having an understanding of the future and became a noted futurist. But he also saw that engineering had some practices and some tools that helped in social development and social evolution. So he became a key person of the Stanford Research Institute, SRI. Avon, and I'm not sure how they connected originally, but Avon and Willis worked very closely with the whole concept of evolution and social evolution. And in 1973, the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who had an epiphany when he was in space coming back from the moon, he had an experience of oneness, where he had the experience of oneness that was so profound that it changed his life, changed him completely. And he started the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Noetic being also the external and internal understanding, growth, and learning. And he went to Willis and asked him to join the Institute of Noetic Sciences as the president. Willis said that he resisted that. I saw a recent video of him, that he resisted it mightily, but he knew that was the right thing. Willis and working with Avon, and we created, there's a lot of things that we were involved in together. We created this wonderful international that Maryland was a part of, Maryland King. The international is a 5-year inquiry into peace building into the 21st century between 1995 and 2000. That was the major part that Willis was part of. But a big thing that Willis did is to bring us the understanding of global mind change. With all of his learning, with all of his work, it really was what it came down to, is this is what makes the difference. And he spoke eloquently about this is, we are in a major evolution, a major transformation. We are living through one of the most fundamental shifts in history, a change in the actual belief structure of Western society. No economic, political, or military power can compare with the power of a change of mind. By deliberately changing their images of reality, people are changing the world. Let that sink in. Take that in for a moment. By deliberately changing their image of reality, people are changing the world. That is a fundamental of evolution. And what evolution might you say? Well, what are we doing? Perhaps the only limits to the human mind are those we believe in. Whoa, we're in a catch-22. So that's a major one. So let me just share a couple of thoughts relative to this, that global mind change is something that is taking place. It is, as we become more aware of this possibility, become more aware of using this, we have abilities we don't even know about. And that's part of our growth, is discovering what those abilities are. One of the things that Willis talks about that is really wonderful is to think about what happened, about an example of our evolution. To think about what happened in 1543, the year 1543 to the year 1687, which is basically is known as the scientific revolution. And what happened there as humanity, because those are the times when people were absolutely sure that the sun revolved around the earth, the universe revolved around the earth was the center point, and other views such as that. And there were those heretical people who were astronomers and saying, no, the earth revolves around the sun. No, that was a huge change in thinking, a huge change in consciousness. And many of the astronomers were persecuted for coming up with such an idea. Well, we're in that time now. We're in the time of evolution, and that's why in the whole area of focus that people could go into about the evolution that's taking place. But that is the key. So recognize, I'm going to read something from Willis. Recognizing you have the power of the mind that we are not using. You have wisdom and knowledge that we are unconsciously, we are not using. We make choices consciously and unconsciously. And so our key is to learn more about what our choices are, and intention will guide us. The war in Ukraine, what we're talking about is about all wars, is about the suspicion of even going there with greater awareness, greater consciousness, and choice. We're in this horrible situation, we as a world, because of people's choices, driven by whatever the needs, the visions, their worldview, etc., have driven it. This is a article that many people are reading, and Rotary people have passed this around. And this is by a very well-known historian. And there are a number of scenarios that are posed here, but what can happen. But fundamentally, he's saying Russia is destroying itself. Russia is having this huge drain of its IT people. They're gone. It's putting itself back years. It's also destroying the Ukraine, the infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. And he said it's just despairing that people are doing this. For what? So again, I'm not going to get into the detail of how this war ends, but the point here, what we're talking about, is the end of all war. How do we move forward? So it is, as Edgar Mitchell saw, there are no boundaries, and there are no boundaries. It is one humanity, and that's what we're about, and that's what Pathways is about. That we are a one human family. Well, and so that's part of the conscious evolution that is taking place. It's not a good idea, although it is, but it is taking place. There are so many examples, so many organizations, so many things that Pathways has also been known by some of us as the mothership. The mothership that really launched so many other organizations, so many other leaders, and it is the evolution that is, we're part of that evolution. But what are the choices that we're making individually? And all of us are, and all of us on this call are dedicated to peace and peace building. Amen. But we need to go to those who have not heard about this. So really the fundamental is that you are a pathway to peace. Each one of us is. And this is where we are, and this is our dedication to moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. That was amazing and powerful and informative. I wonder if, because everyone here, of course, is a pathway to peace, and they've also dedicated their lives to peace building, because we know them personally. And we know that. And so as a peace leader, because you've been in the forefront of peace building for such a very long time and providing leadership, what kind of advice might you give other peace builders as it relates to, I'm going to bring it back to kind of responding to the global conflicts, including the war in the Ukraine. But, you know, there are so many other, we call them conflicts, but they are wars as well. They don't fit the legal definition, but they are war. What advice might you give us in terms of how we might respond?
Well, I think there are a number of actions, direct actions that we can take, and many people are, such as supporting. I mean, there's a great groundswell supporting refugees from Ukraine. I mean, the people that are deeply, I mean, God bless them, just like, holy mackerel, just your whole life is turned upside down, and
Yes.
suddenly you have to go to another country, and just like, or you're losing your family members, and just like, oh my God, I can't even imagine that. But how do we assist, support, give well-being to, an example that there's a very powerful example of friends of ours, particularly through the Rotary E-Club of World Peace, Brian and Lisa Berman, who lived in Ojai, and they were peace leaders in Ojai, California. And they were, brought the International Series of Peace, and they were deeply involved with their community. And they were so inspired, and they did have some experience in Europe. They closed up their art, their shop, everything in Ojai, and went to Poland to work with the Ukrainian refugees and the children in particular. I mean, that's a very powerful example. It's just like, putting your life on the line, for others. And from donations to organizations that you trust that are really doing the work, etc. But it's also, excuse me, what, again, we're talking local and global. So what can we do, in our local communities to support actions around peace building, around peace? The languaging of that, there's some places where just like, even the word peace is just like, that's too political. Just like, no, that's our survival. That's our evolution. So it's fun. It's so much of it is about education. And so bringing ourselves to engage with people locally. That's what we did with Ashland Culture Peace Commission, bringing the whole concept of the culture of peace to our city council, to our chamber of commerce, to our police department, to the schools here. And people started understanding and engaging. It took time around a city of peace. So what is that? What does that look like? People started aligning with it, taking some actions around, and taking some pride in, we can create more peace in our community. Is what it really comes down to. What do we want to live with? So that is like with Willis, it's what is our future? What is the future we're choosing in a very direct and conscious way? So there are many different actions that people can take, as well as just, I think, informing ourselves and being in groups or connecting with others, other like minds, that we learn from each other and then bring that forward into our communities on a local, global level, whatever we choose.
Yes. And I'm so glad you mentioned Brian Bierman and his wife, because he and his wife came to Auschwitz, Poland, where our speaker tomorrow, Nina Meyerhoff, has established Hope House. And so I would encourage our group to come back at this time tomorrow as the very dynamic Nina Meyerhoff is going to be talking to us about this issue, really from the border, as Nina created Hope House to house Ukrainian refugees and to transform Auschwitz into a house of hope. And so I hope people will join us tomorrow. It's such an amazing example, and Brian and his partner are such a model for, as you said, picking up truly and leaving everything behind because of their commitment and their vision for peace and their yearning to make a difference with real on the ground support of refugees from Ukraine.
I
So
think another point is really, how do we use the media to reach beyond our choir, to reach beyond the people that we know and that we hang out with and so on. And it's really about using all the tools that we have
is.
and being creative within that. Then
Yes.
we, do new stuff. It's like, let our creative mind go and inspiration comes. I mean, I think that's part of the conscious evolution. Inspiration
Yes.
comes. There is a larger guidance taking place in so many ways, but it's just
Yes.
like, okay, listen and take action.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And you've got an entire lifetime body of work that demonstrates that, David. You truly are a voice for peace and an activist for co-creating that culture of peace. And so you know that how much I appreciate you and your work. And I so am grateful for our work together. And I know
Me
that
too. You.
your work spans local, global, intercultural, intergenerational. And so just thank you for who you are.
Well,
and
thank
what
you.
do in the world.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But we all do that.
Yes,
All of us
Yes.
here
yes,
on the call, and so many, many others. And that's part of what's inspiring too. There are a lot of people stepping up, a lot of people going, all right, this is our time, in different organizations, different forms. So thank you.
yes. And so, David, we are going to close with Dot's Global Silent Minute. But before we do that, I just want to give you an opportunity to share anything that you haven't yet had an opportunity to share. Anything that you'd like to tell us that you haven't yet had an opportunity to.
Thank you. One is on the chat, right in the beginning of the chat, we did post some information. Then copy that down. And I hope everyone has the ability to copy the chat, because there's the information about, you saw the video clips that I had from Avon. Well, there's the whole segments. There are about 6 or 7 segments of Avon's interview, and that was David Hazen, who lives up in Eugene, Oregon, who did the interview, and that was his brainstorm to have those interviews. So they're very much worthwhile. At the very top of the, it's not there. Okay, let me do a quick. I'm going to capture what I did and repost it. So that's, I would say that's one thing. And the other is, we're doing it together. This is all together. And I'm also just grateful for the time of coming together. And I think, in many ways our footsteps are guided, but, coming together and working with Avon and having that opportunity and the growing, and it was just like, okay. I mean, they're just like, okay, yes.
Yes.
And also with Willis, but people are come into our paths unexpectedly, or just being awake. I mean, just each of you here, each on the screen here, delightful that we're together and that we could do this together. And what a joy as we cheer each other on. So this is a team effort, as Marilyn would say. This is a team effort, no question about it. So yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, David. And thank you to our beloved audience that came into this sacred circle today. We so appreciate each one of you and your work for peace. And so we are going to close with Dot Maver's Global Silent Minute. And Dot was very instrumental in encouraging us to pick up this series of interviews. And while she couldn't be here with us for the interviews, I encouraged her to allow us to close with her Global Silent Minute. So I'm going to hope to do Dot justice as we move into the Global Silent Minute. So Dot invites you to participate in the daily practice of the Global Silent Minute, the exact same minute everywhere, calibrated to 9 p.m. GMT for global cooperation, peace, and freedom. And now we will close with a global, I say golden every time, so I'm going to say a golden global silent minute, linking our hearts across distance, both sides of the veil, to invoke the spirit of peace as we hold the intention of the healing of nations, both within and between, for global cooperation, peace, and freedom, as we usher in the era of peace and put an end to all war and suffering. Let us prepare to enter the silence together. We take a deep breath and activate the spirit of peace within our own hearts. And we link our fiery hearts across distance. Now we take another moment and we invite all those on the other side of the veil to cooperate with us. We will now go into the silence, distributing our intention for everlasting peace. So thank you Thank you for being here. We so appreciate each one of you. And at Pathways to Peace, as David has already said, we know you are a pathway to peace. So thank you. And we look forward to our work with you together, moving forward to build that culture of peace, to embrace that peace and allow that to wash around our world for an end of all war and suffering. Thank you for being here.
Thank you indeed. A pleasure.